No matter how brilliantly crafted and exquisitely well written a movie might be, even the most potential rich work of cinema can end up being derailed by an unfortunate casting choice. After all, actors are the vessels through which a story is ultimately told, and if they're not fit for the task or become more of a liability than a benefit, then their movie is in trouble. I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 actors who could ruin upcoming movies. Number 10. Robert Downey Jr. in Avengers Doomsday. Let's kick this list off with perhaps the biggest elephant in the room in Hollywood right now, the return of Robert Downey Jr. to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the now filming Avengers Doomsday. Marvel Studios shocked the world last summer when they announced that Downey would be returning to the franchise not to reprise his role as Iron Man, but instead to play the villainous Doctor Doom. Tellingly, Marvel have remained tight-lipped about precisely how this will work, leaving fans to speculate on whether Downey's Doctor Doom might be a Tony Stark variant, or more bewilderingly, Downey could be genuinely playing an entirely new character with no link whatsoever to Tony Stark. Either way, the bombshell announcement proved immediately polarizing, some relishing the opportunity to see Downey back in the MCU, while others saw it as a wildly desperate move on Marvel's part, an in case of emergency smash glass moment to try and restore the MCU's floundering goodwill of recent years. We can only hope that the Russo brothers are cooking up something interesting and unexpected here, though it's also quite possible that Downey ends up being an albatross hanging around the movie's neck. There's no doubt he'll give it his all as usual, but on a storytelling level, will his presence be anything more than a cynical stunt casting? Number 9. Margot Robbie and Jacob Eloordi in Wuthering Heights. Saltburn director Emerald Fennell is currently in post-production on her adaptation of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. And given the popularity of the novel, fans were always going to have a lot to say about the casting choices. And that they certainly did when Margot Robbie and Jacob Eloordi were announced to be playing the lead roles of Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff. Given that Catherine is in her late teens in the end of the story, it's certainly a bold choice to have the 34-year-old Robbie playing the part, almost double the character's age as written in the source material. On the other hand, there's Heathcliff, who is said to be around 40 years old in the novel, though is played here by a 27-year-old Eloordi. And this is without even getting into the disappointment by many that an actor of colour wasn't cast to play Heathcliff, given that he's described in the book as dark-skinned, admittedly among other things such as pale and Spanish, ensuring plenty of room for interpretation. Robbie and Eloordi are both talented actors, and it's entirely possible that Fennell is attempting an intentionally radical reinvention of the source text. But considering how firmly attached people are to these characters, the casting choices alone ensure the film faces an uphill struggle winning people over. Number 8. The Weeknd in Hurry Up Tomorrow. Hurry Up Tomorrow is the new film from Trey Edward Schultz, a musical psychological thriller starring singer-songwriter The Weeknd as a fictionalized version of himself, an insomniac musician on the verge of a mental breakdown who enters the orbit of a mysterious stranger played by Jenna Ortega. Though there's no doubting the talent of filmmaker Schultz nor Jenna Ortega, casting The Weeknd in the lead role is a huge gamble. After all, his performance in HBO's controversial TV series The Idol was widely panned by critics. So it's honestly surprising to see him being given another shot at acting, let alone headlining a $20 million movie opposite one of the most popular rising actresses of the 2020s and an acclaimed indie filmmaker. While the trailer for Hurry Up Tomorrow does a great job selling its chaotic mood, there's the very reasonable concern that The Weeknd could give a dire performance which just drags the whole thing down. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. Number 7. Seth Rogan in Animal Farm. Andy Serkis's animated adaptation of George Orwell's seminal novel Animal Farm has been in various stages of development for almost 15 years, but it's finally releasing this summer. The voice cast is assuredly stacked, though the ensemble isn't without its eyebrow-raising choices. Most of all, Seth Rogan, who will be playing the pig dictator Napoleon. Unsurprisingly, Rogan's casting proved immediately divisive online, for though he's proven himself to be versatile as both a skilled comedian comedian and talented dramatic actor, for many this seemed too far outside of his wheelhouse. That is to say, can Rogan use his chucklehead persona to make Napoleon superficially charming, but also turn up the intensity during his scarier, more imposing moments? It's certainly possible, but it may also be tough for audiences to divorce Rogan's distinctive voice from his more popular goofball characters, or even other talking animals that he's voiced like the Lion King's Pumbaa. As ever though, we'll just have to wait and see. Number 6. Johnny Depp in Day Drinker. Day Drinker is a new action thriller from director Mark Webb, and will star Johnny Depp as a mysterious day drinker who, along with a young private yacht bartender, becomes entangled in a criminal underworld. Day Drinker is clearly being mounted as something of a comeback vehicle for Depp, whose last major role in a Hollywood movie was Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald way back in 2018. Between Depp's own declining commercial appeal and personal controversies, namely a messy legal battle with his ex-wife Amber Heard, it's simply possible that he ends up being more of a liability than a benefit to the film when it releases next year. I mean, even ignoring the baggage that Depp brings with him, there's also the fact that he's tended towards a wackier, more off-the-wall acting style over the last 15 or so years. And if he brings the same mumbly, restless shtick to Day Drinker, it could simply be off-putting to many who might otherwise be interested. Number 5. Matthew Lillard, Scream 7. Scream fans were left shook when Matthew Lillard was confirmed to be appearing in Scream 7, presumably to reprise the role of original Ghostface killer Stu Macher in some capacity. Could the series finally be indulging the deeply silly fan theory that Stu somehow survived having a giant CRT TV dropped on his head at the end of the first film? Otherwise, it's possible we'll see a digitally de-aged Lillard appear as Stu in flashbacks. Or perhaps even that the new Ghostface will be using AI deepfakes of legacy killers to taunt Sidney and co. There's certainly no doubting Lillard's acting chops, given that his performance as Stu remains a firm fan favourite. But it would also be incredibly easy for Scream 7 to jump the shark by bringing him back into the fold. Hell, even Lillard himself has admitted that he's, quote, slightly terrified of returning to Scream, adding, quote, all I can do is really screw up a legacy that we have. Lillard hopes he doesn't, quote, F it up for everyone, and so fans can only pray that the script doesn't take any wild, credibility-staining swings with how Stu is featured. With original writer Kevin Williamson on board as director, here's hoping it's a choice that comes good. Number 4. Everyone in the Beatles. Last year, Sam Mendes announced that he was set to direct an ambitious 4-movie biopic project of the Beatles, with one film devoted to each of the band's members. Casting announcements dripped out in the months that followed, with Barry Keoghan playing Ringo Starr, Paul Mescal taking the role of Paul McCartney, Joseph Quinn starring as George Harrison, and Harris Dickinson portraying John Lennon. These casting picks proved immediately divisive with not only Beatles fans, but general film lovers. For as talented as the 4 actors undeniably are, don't these choices all seem a bit obvious? It's a rather unimaginative slate, as though a casting director simply googled hottest rising male actors 2024 and quickly settled on this lot. Then there's the fact that none of the 4 actors bear much of a physical resemblance to the musicians they're playing, and they're all already older than the Beatles were when they broke up. Many would have evidently preferred Mendes to make a wide casting call, allowing lesser-known actors to possibly win the roles and, with their lack of fame, have an easier time disappearing into the parts. But to Hollywood, that represents a massive risk, and so the safe option was to sign up 4 well-liked, young-ish actors instead. Whether audiences will actually buy them as the Beatles, though, does remain to be seen. Number 3. Lewis Tan in Mortal Kombat 2. 2021's Mortal Kombat reboot wasn't bad at all, though fans of the video game franchise were largely united in their one overpowering criticism: the inclusion of a new audience surrogate protagonist, Cole Young. Cole was an entirely new character invented for the movie, and yet most fans questioned why the protagonist couldn't simply be an existing Mortal Kombat character. Beyond being a dull and uninteresting character, Cole also brought a ton of snoozy personal baggage with him, namely his wife and daughter who are oh so predictably kidnapped in the third act. Lewis Tan does about as well in the thankless role as anyone could ask, and though many were hopeful that Cole would be quietly nudged aside for the sequel, that unfortunately is not the case. Cole will indeed be returning in Mortal Kombat 2, though given that the film will introduce Karl Urban's take on Johnny Cage, there's also fair hope that Cage will end up stealing much of the limelight away from Cole. Fingers crossed. Number 2, Jared Leto in Tron Aries. The teaser trailer for Tron Aries looks pretty damn cool. Light cycles, missiles, and 9-inch nails. I mean, what more could you possibly want? But the general enthusiasm for the highly anticipated sequel was tempered by the presence of Jared Leto, who will be portraying the blockbuster's primary antagonist, Aries, a highly advanced program which is sent into the real world and causes all manner of chaos. Though Leto is a talented Oscar-winning actor, it's also fair to call him a polarizing performer at the best of times. His often odd acting choices and eccentric public persona ensuring that many would simply prefer not to see him in a Tron movie, of all things. Ultimately, is Leto going to give us a somnambulant Morbius tier performance, or is he going to do something interesting and unexpected? But even if he succeeds, there's the reality that Leto haters just might not bother going to see the movie at all, which could doom it in a whole other way, denting its box office enough that Disney doesn't greenlight a fourth film in short order. Number 1, Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. in I Know What You Did Last Summer. Now, the jury is still firmly out on the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is following in the footsteps of Halloween 2018 and Scream 2022 by going the legacy sequel route while recycling the original film's title. Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. will also be reprising their roles as franchise leads Julie James and Ray Bronson. A neat idea in theory, perhaps, except is there really much ongoing affection for these characters? Enough to justify their presence in the latest hook-handed killing spree? The first trailer doesn't make a hugely compelling argument, at least for Hewitt and Prince's presence in the story, beyond providing some forced connective tissue to the original films and dropping contrived callbacks. The pair certainly can't be blamed for taking a nostalgia-fueled payday, but of all the horror franchises that could easily coast on nostalgia, I Know What You Did Last Summer surely isn't one of them. If Hollywood truly wants to reinvigorate this dubious brand, then it might be wiser to just wipe the slate clean and start fresh, especially considering that the first two movies were hardly much good to begin with.